have my little board here and I'm checking to see. One of the cards says going into hiding. I'll tell you a story about that. So the beings have been showing up in my life since the drowning, and they're telling me stories, and they're trying to teach me how to connect to the field. They're trying to teach me how to hear. They're trying to teach me how to use my energy portals to make things happen. So this energy comes to me one night, and it gives me a whole download of stuff that if I go and write this book, I can make a lot of money. And if I make a lot of money, do you know how many people I can help? Oh, do you know how many people I can help? Did you hear I'm very important. That's a load of shit. We're not individually very important. We're important to each other. We're important to the people we love. But individually, when people get too I-based, that means their ego's engaged. So this group of beings showed up and started to tell me to go out to this cottage, write this book, you're going to be famous, you're going to have this money, you're going to have all these things happen. And I'm like, okay then. And then I didn't have any money, and somebody gave it to me. I was like, oh, it must all meant to be. So this is in the beginning when I'm trying to figure out, how do I find somebody to trust? Are you all trustworthy? Do I just speak to anybody? Because I'd already decided I didn't like speaking to dead people. So is it like a carte blanche across the universe that every being counts? But there is a dark force and a light force. Go back to my little 4-year-old boy telling me, don't worry, the light is going to win. So we do have influences from the dark. So the dark force says to me, oh, go out and make this book, and you're going to be so famous, and you're going to be so rich. So I go out to the cottage, I follow all the instructions, and these beings show up that are not who I've been dealing with. And they basically say, you're going to kill yourself tonight, and you're going to do this, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm over that. I'm raising my children. I've got to do this work, and I'm having this conversation, and it gets really, really dark. And the smell of sulfur and rotten eggs, and it's just like, whoa, this is really, I want to get out of here. I'm not happy. And the snowstorm, it's the worst snowstorm Nova Scotia's had in years. And the snow is coming up over the cottage windows and up over the doors, and this hissy sound is getting, and I'm like, wah! Holy God, not all things are created equal. Beings are not all happy beings. These ones are not happy beings. So I stayed up all night in terror and fear, and I started saying, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. I'm doing everything I ever learned from my father, anybody who had some Christian-based idealism or something. And I'm like, And anyway, they're laughing at me saying, you don't believe anything. You don't believe any of that. You think you're safe, but you have nothing because you believe in nothing. And they're right. They're right. They're challenging me, but I didn't believe in anything. And when I did believe in it, it looked like this, right? So, oh yeah, no, wait now. Oh yeah, wait now. So all of a sudden, I'm being challenged by this dark force that's saying, well, if you kill yourself, we'll take you even before you feel the sting of the blade. So this happened in February before Fire the Grid was supposed to happen in July. And I went dead cold. I'm stopped. I'm not doing this. I don't know what that dark stuff is, but it's not this light stuff. And now I don't know how to discern the difference. And I'm scared. I'm not doing this. So once again, I go back into hiding. Don't call me. Nobody call me. Stay the hell away from me. But what came down from the teaching, remember I said it's a Y-gate decision. I had to stick my nose back out and go again. I had to. There was no other choice. So I said, okay, well, if I have to work with energy, I need to know I'm working with good, positive energy. And they said, so you have to intend it so. You have to state who you want to work with. And we will never, meaning we, the positive light brigade, the light force, we will never lure you with anything for you. There is no I. I'm special. I need something. This did not exist. And they're telling me that if you're working with entities that are of darkness, they will lull you towards what they think you want. Oh, we're going to give you a new car. We're going to get you a new house. You're going to write a book. You're going to be famous. So that was where I had to come to that lesson, that the dark light and the light both exists, and you have to be cautious who you're working with. You want to make sure that you call out and you ask for beings of 100% light. I only want to work with beings of 100% light. Now, one of the things they talked about, it was a story about sinner and saint. And I was working for this guy, I was a receptionist. And the being said to me, when sinner and saint pick up the flag for the same cause, you'll know you're on the right path. Well, this is in the beginning. This is in like 2006, and there's another one of blah, 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 blah. What? What does that mean? Why can't you guys just say something straightforward? So anyway, I get a phone call in the morning, and it's a woman from New Orleans, and she tells me that she's a porn star and that they're having a huge Fire the Grid event. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And she goes, the whole industry's doing it. And I'm like, cool, okay. And so she wants me to give her some instructions about how we can come together and raise our frequency and be our best, most authentic beings in our suits. And of course, she continues to tell me she's a porn star and her site and different things. And I'm like, okay, this must be the sinner, the so-called sinner. And she's so delightful and she's so wonderful and she's got this big plan. I'm like, yay, great, that's wonderful. So later on that afternoon, I get a second phone call. And this is a Baptist minister from Memphis. And I was like, oh my God, you're joking. Because really? Yeah, I mean, because these were the amazing things that would happen. And so this man's now on the phone with me, and he's telling me all about the fact that his congregation is going to do Fire the Grid, and what do we do? And it's the exact same conversation I just had with this woman in New Orleans. And I'm like, I guess this is sinner and saint. Yeah? Ding, 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 ding. Okay, right on, cool. So it didn't matter who we were as individuals, as people. So at that time, I was dating this guy, and he came up the stairs, and I was so delighted to have my story of my sinner and saint. I was like, they did it again, it always happens. And he goes, oh, you don't want her type? I was like, pardon me? And he said, you don't want her type? And I said, are you judging that woman because of her life experiences? I said, that's what got her to where she is. That's not who she is. Those are events that got her to where she is. It could have been me. I could have been her, that woman. But because of choices I made, I didn't end up being there. I said, maybe it's your type I don't want. Because we have to understand that inside of every single one of us is an energy being that wants to play in the field. So this new field that is coming for us, we all can play in the new field. It's about accepting each other. It's about finding each other fascinating. Instead of looking down the road of criticism and judgment and what do you do and who are you and your nose is curled up, it's like, wow, you're a divine being in a suit. Yes, I am. Now, my life experiences have brought me here. Oh yeah, well, my life experiences have brought me here. But we're both awake enough to have this conversation. We're both awake enough to understand that we're connected to this energy grid, and that in being connected to this energy grid, we can create miracles. So, cleaning the air, cleaning the water, cleaning the situation that we're in, getting ourselves to a better state. Right now, it is not about focusing on those things. We want to focus on each other. We want to focus on saying yes, that we are divine beings in suits. And yes, we're connected to this energy grid. And in being connected to this energy grid, we want our little photon to fly around that hexagon really fast and flood those junctures. Because when you find your most uplifted place and you find that joyful moment and then you say thank you, and you send out that flooded energy, you help somebody along the way. So this goes back to the same story about the woman in New Orleans who's the pornographer, and then the man in Memphis who was the Baptist minister. So they told me about this guy, Joe. And they said Joe is a construction worker, and he goes to work every day, and he works hard, and he goes out and he does his best to be a good person, and he gives a bit of money where he can, and he's just doing his best to be a good guy. And Joe comes home from working all day, and he sits down in his easy chair with his can of beer and his television, football. And he kicks his feet up, and he goes, now this is living. So Joe is totally acknowledging that he feels joy right now. His can of beer and his football game is his joy right now. So as long as Joe just says, hey, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? This is living. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't judge Joe's joy. Because as soon as you judge Joe in his joy, you lower your own field, because judgment is low frequency. And the minute you judge Joe, he can't participate because you have isolated him from the fact that he's an energy being in a suit. So don't judge Joe's joy, because what happens is when Joe starts to say thank you for his can of beer and his football game, next week he'll be in the yard playing with his grandkids. And this will be a new joy, right? So we're leveling up constantly. Right now, Joe's joy is a can of beer and a football game. And if we judge it and take that away from him, he can't level up. So as long as Joe's saying thank you, thank you, thank you, next week he'll have a different parameter for what his joy is. And then there'll be another parameter, because it doesn't matter. The Buddhist monk living in Tibet cannot possibly understand the woman who is on the streets in New York City. But they can both understand what joy is. And sometimes the smallest joy is the most powerful one, because you got to find it. You got to go digging around. Oh, I feel crappy. I feel shitty. Oh, I don't want to be here. Whatever the list of stuff our brain does. So when that happens, we take out one little small piece of joy and we say thank you and we level up. So don't judge Joe's joy. I think I'm going to tell you about how I got the name Samoya in here. So my name is Shelley Yates, and that's been my name my whole life. So when I went to this big event in Montreal that I talked about earlier, and I was talking to all the people who are in this business, I found myself being drawn to this woman's house for a meditation. Now, I didn't meditate. This was not my world. This is all kind of odd. And she's like, would you want to come to my house and meditate? And I'm like, okay, all right. So I get to her house and she sets up the meditation and stuff, and I have the meditation, and it was the first time I really traveled, and right down a tunnel type of thing. And I said, oh my God, that's a Samoyed Husky. But I didn't get to say Samoyed Husky. All I got was Samoya. I was like, wow, okay, what's a Samoya? You? I'm a Samoya? So these are all things about how Spirit speaks to us, how the universe is trying to guide us to our true selves. So they said, your name is Samoya. That's how we see you. So take this name and use it. And I'm like, no thanks. I don't want to be any weirder than I already am. I'm telling you, this has just been my constant state. So anyway, Samoya. Okay, my name is Samoya. And then they said, thank this woman for the meditation and never see her again. I was like, oh, okay. So as it turns out, she turned on me. Oh, wickedly turned on me. And they were right. It's like, pay attention, because the universe is always conspiring for your success. A cool experience was I met a man who in the very beginning was working with a big Indian chief. I could see the chief and I could see the energy, and I was like, wow, this guy's really connected to something pretty incredible. And then pass on years and years later, and he had become full of ego. The last time I saw him, he walked down. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, look at you. And so he gets up on the stage to give his presentation, and he's like, I thought I was looking at Chad Kruger. Like, come on, man. And he was just so really exuding, yeah, I'm it, right? I was like, ooh, this should be interesting. So I started to look for his big Indian chief that, I'd seen before when he had first started his journey, and I didn't see any Indian chief. I saw this diabolical little guy that leaned out from the side of him and stroked his big long mustache and said, simply dastardly. And then these little minion-y creatures, and I was like, wow, because do you know what? All the ones on the dark side can see the same things the ones on the light side can see. You have to be in charge if you're picking the dark side or the light side. And if you get your ego in there, and if you think you're all that in a bag of chips, you're going to get the darkies, or the oogie boogies, I call them. So that was part of when we were talking earlier about the way they show you stuff. So when they showed me the kangaroo and the desert and the rock, my eyes were shut and I could see them. When I was looking at this guy on the stage, the very first time I saw him, there was an 11-foot Indian chief behind him. And he was going, chief, 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 chief. I was like, okay, I got it. You're the chief. Okay. But I could see that with my eyes. And then years and years later, I saw the dastardly guy with my eyes. The biggest thing is that nothing I get is not available to you. It's the biggest thing. And as soon as you get into a place of ego, if you think you're more than if you're a bag of chips, don't you see how special I am? If you think that, then guess what? And I'll tell you intention. I'll quickly tell you this story before we go. So when the beings started teaching me how to meditate, I would sit in the bathtub with my legs out. You know, you're in the bathtub and the water's up to your waist. And they would start, and I would start feeling myself going, whoa, okay, don't close your eyes, whoa. I mean, it was literally, you could feel energy moving around your body and your whole body's moving. It was like, okay, just breathe. So anyway, I started then trying to take it out of the bathtub to the couch. So I had a couch like this, and I would come down, and they explained about how to prop up your body, because if there's any discomfort in the human, it won't journey. It won't do the journey. So if your arms are not propped, if this is pulling, or if your bra is sticking in and stuff like that, take your bra off, get your panties off, get comfy. And so I'm sitting on the couch, and I started doing the little swirlies, and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is good. And then I would have these, what I called golden spinning orgasms. And the whole body is like, ah, and you'd fall back into the couch like, ah, that was really good. And so this is when I learned about intention, what you do and the intention of what you're doing. So every day I came down, now I'm excited to meditate. Woohoo, this is pretty good. So I'm sitting on the couch and doing my thing. Next thing I have my big spinning golden orgasm. Ah, that was really good. So on the 7th day, I come down the stairs. Now my intention is not to connect with my source and be guided and get my, no. I'm coming to meditate. And so my intention now was to have the spinning orgasm, not to connect, not to be, closer to the God, which I now call the giver of directions, none of that stuff. It was like, come on, give me my juice. And I got on the couch. Not only could I just could not get into the meditation. And when I got in the meditation, I was like, okay, where's the orgasms? Come on, and that was it. I never had another one. Because my intention went from seeking guidance and counsel, being connected to source, being fuller and richer in my experience, to I wanted the orgasms, the spinning orgasms. But on the good note, we can all have the spinning orgasms. You just have the right intentions. And we can all connect to this energy. Every single one of us can connect to it. But your intentions are very important. So this is what I call dead people energy. And dead people energy is different than otherworldly energy. And dead people energy, they will take full advantage of your body if you let them, which I didn't have a clue. So I'm sitting there, and this energy comes right up through my body. It's just like a punch, and it comes right up through my body and bursts out of my chest. And I'm like, oh! It was like right out of a movie.
Oh my
Smoke
God.
comes out of your mouth. And this entity, or whatever it is, burst right out of my chest, and I'm like, holy shit! And I kind of came back, the shaking stopped, the cold was gone, I was completely okay, except I never want that to happen again as long as I live!
Ectoplasm. I'm so pissed off.
Oh
Because
my.
I feel like I have just been violated.
No kidding.
Yeah, so then I went on a mad search. So I'd had, by that time, I'd had 4 different encounters with dead people energy. And I was like, I don't know who the hell you guys are, but I don't want dead people energy. So I put a little tattoo at the base of my neck. And that stopped all.
And so what is the tattoo?
What is the tattoo? Oh, it's just a little water angel.
That we need to know.
Oh, my God.
It's just a,
But this is where energy moves in and out of the body for possession or channeling dead people, or and I got a no enter.
yeah, no kidding.
We are connected to everything. Egypt is a huge piece of us, and most of us have some feelings toward Egypt. Like, I just had a sense of it, because Egypt really was a cradle of civilization and birth of this energy. I remember going to art school, and they had Ramses, you know, the big 40-foot beings outside the temple. And my instructor is telling me, look how full of themselves the Egyptians were. I'm like, pardon me? And he says, well, look, they built these huge monuments that, you know, were to show how grand they were. And I said, the doors are 35 feet high because the beings that were coming were 35 feet high. Now, that never went over well because I was disagreeing with him, but I knew, even though I had no spirituality, that why would they build temples with 30-foot ceilings if beings weren't available, 30-foot beings? And just for something to give you a tweak of information about Egypt, more and more and more they understand that the Sphinx was not worn by sand and wind. It was worn by water. And it actually makes Egypt 12,000 years old, not 6,000 years old. And the beings have confirmed all this. That you guys just get everything wrong. You know, why do you do that? So anyway, the story about Horus and Isis is I was traveling around for the very first Fire the Grid. And like I said, I traveled for free, and I went where people took me. So anyway, I went to this church, and it was filled. It was filled, standing room only. It's always really cool to walk into a place that people are shoulder to shoulder waiting to hear this incredibly good news. So I come out of the event, and I'm really high, and I'm excited, and I'm like, wow, these people are great. And I went out. They had a labyrinth in the yard, and I'm trying to come back down from this heightened, oh, wow, all this great energy. And this kid comes up to me. You know, he's a kid now, but he says to me, hi, and he says, I enjoyed your speaking engagement, and he says, do you know who I am? And I'm like, no, should I know who you are? And then my other, do we date? Like, I don't know you. And he goes, he says, well, I want to show you something. So he says, put your hand out. So I did, and he you know, he says, put your hand out like this. So I did it. And, oh wait, now before we got to that, he says to me, how old do you think I am? You know, this is conversation. I was like, I don't know, 25. He says, why are you guessing? I'm like, I don't know. And he taps me, and he goes, tell me how old I am. And I went, you're 18. He goes, yes, I am. Because he knew this. Like, he was we talked about angels walking amongst us. This kid was something other than a human. So he says, put your finger out. So I put my hand out the way he showed me. And then he put his finger on my hand. And however it was, the fingers came off like this. And as they did, this long stream of green energy light came off between the 2 fingers. And he says, watch this. And he's swirling it, and he pushed it down. He swirled it around my finger, and he pulled it back out, and he swirled it some more. And I was like, what is that? That's so cool. And you know, you're like, oh, this is David Copperfield. This is a trick. But it wasn't. This kid was something other than human. And he's laughing, he's smiling, and he goes, he thinks it's all so novel, you know. He says, you can do this. And I'm like, no, I can't. He goes, yes, you can. And then he says, do you know who I am? And I'm like, no. And he says, you don't remember me? Think about it. And I'm still going, nope. And he says, I'm Horus, and you are Isis. And this is when you go, okay, this is crazy. But here's this kid swirling green light around your fingers, and he's so zen. And you look in his eyes and you just see supernatural. And then it's like, could you be Isis? Could you be, like, could we be the essence of something? So I never ever went, hey, yeah, I'm Isis. But it was really funny because just after that happening, I was at James Gilliland's place, and they had a little stone store. And I went in, and I saw this picture up on the wall, and I had to have it. I didn't have 2 cents to rub together, but it was $75, and to me that was a million, but it didn't matter. I had to own it. And the woman told me that a 17-year-old girl had painted it, and she had brought it in, and she had no internet, and she had no television. She lived in a cottage with her grandmother, and she just did Egyptian art. So she had brought this in for sale. And anyway, I bought the piece, and I went home with it so excited. And at the bottom, when I got in and looked at the art careful, it said Isis. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I do feel, is Isis an energy that we can have a piece of? Or is it an actual form, and can somebody become the form? These are things that I just find interesting, and this is what I said about finding things cool and fun and enjoying it, and don't get caught up with the negative, but don't get caught up with the positive either. We are all divine creatures that are really cool, but these are cool stories. So, yeah, I really feel connected to Isis. And so when people say to me, oh, such and such about Isis, I say, are you talking about an Egyptian goddess? No, well then I don't want to talk about it. Because I only now try to talk about things that are fun and light. I know the world's in chaos. You all know the world's in chaos. You don't even have to turn the television set off. But you get to choose whether or not you put your energy towards chaos or you put your energy towards high frequency and gratitude. So that's my cool little Isis story. I got invited to speak at the Queen's Chamber in Egypt. And the only price I had to pay was to give up the entire The Fire Grid list. And I said, well, are you going to make something free for the other people? Are you going to give a cost reduction to people, or is this just rich people? And they were like, well, it's a trip, and I said, yeah, but what are you going to make available to the people? Because my messages, my teachings, what I have to bring forward are for the people. And if you're going to limit me to do something, I'd love to go to the Queen's Chamber and do a meditation, but not if there's not accommodations for the other people. And that's always been my teaching, that, yeah, go ahead and create abundance, but make sure that the primary thing that I'm doing is teaching what these beings taught me to teach you. Like just how to connect even, and simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. If it's not simplicity, it's probably not from them. So they started talking about Horton Hears a Who. And I'm like, Dr. Seuss? Okay, tell me about it. So they started talking about Horton's walking around, and in his trunk he has a little flower, and on the little flower is an itty bitty universe. And he's talking to it, oh, in there. And they're like, hi. And he's like, wow, you're a little itty bitty universe. And it's like, yeah, we've always been here. And he's like, well, nobody even knows you're in there. Now, all the well-meaning do-gooders around Horton go, he's crazy. We've got to get rid of that little universe because he thinks he's talking to somebody. Well, isn't that me? So we've got to get rid of that flower. And they try to pour it in boiling water, and they try to throw it away. And it's like a really chaotic thing for Horton because he's trying to protect this little universe. So Horton is saying, listen, part of the problem is they don't know you're there. You need to go and collect all the little who's in Whoville. And when I say, you got to call out. And you got to let everybody know that you're in there, because I can't protect you. And he's really tormented and worn down. He's like, whew, I'm trying to save this little universe. So anyway, the mayor of Whoville goes all over the whole Whoville place, and he gets everybody involved. And he says, okay, everybody, when Horton says, everybody call out, we're here, we're here, we're here. And Horton goes, is everybody calling out? Because They can't hear you. And the mayor goes, well, just a second, I'll go see. And he runs all over Whoville again, and he finds the littlest Who. And she's in the corner, and she's playing with a yo-yo, not making a sound. And the mayor goes, why aren't you contributing? Why aren't you calling out? And she goes, I always cry this part, what can I do? I'm so insignificant. I'm the littlest Who. I have nothing to offer. And the mayor goes, oh, yes, you do. You are so important. And he says, okay, Horton, I've got everybody. And he holds the littlest Who up, and everybody goes, we're here, we're here, we're here. We're worth saving. We're worth taking. We're worth coming to get. And the littlest Who goes, pip. And she adds her most beautiful little sound to this beautiful calling out. We're here. We're ready. We want something different. We are capable of this change. We are high frequency. We are ready. And out of the little world on the flower calls out, hello, we're here. And all the people who were chasing Horton to destroy the little flower because they didn't believe there was a little universe there, they all stop and go, oh, there's a little universe in there. So the being said to me, are you the universe on the inside, or are you the universe on the outside? Are you the ones calling out, saying, help us, save us, we're here? Right? Which one are we? Because imagine that little universe might have had a little Horton in it with another little flower. We don't know these things, but the one thing that we do know for sure right now is there's more to this than meets the eye, and that we have to call out. So Fire the Grid is us coming together, holding up our littlest Whos and going, call out, call out. Yes, we're here. Yes, we're worthy. Yes, we're divine light in form. We finally acknowledge it. We finally remember. We finally know it. Yes! Come and get us. Take us. Bring us to the other world. We are so ready. So that's us. When we fire the Earth Grid, we're like the littlest Whos in there calling out, we're ready and we're ready to do this. Come on.